The story starts with the male and female lead sharing a quiet, close moment together, enjoying the peaceful atmosphere. But just a few hours earlier, the day had begun much differently. That morning, Seol-ha, the female lead, prepares herself for a big step. After thinking it over for a while, she's ready to hand in her resignation. She walks into her boss's office, her heart racing slightly. Jeong-mu, the president of Venus Company, is busy with paperwork, but looks up as she approaches. She hands him the letter without hesitation. As he reads it, Seol-ha notices the tension in the room and tries to ease it by offering to adjust the blinds. Jeong-mu, still focused on the letter, brushes off the offer. It's not the room that's making him uneasy, it's the contents of the letter. He mentions how something about it bothers him, but Seol-ha quickly reassures him, explaining that she made sure everything was properly formatted and correct. After reading, he comments on the quality of the letter, appreciating how well it's written, though his tone hints that there's more going on beneath the surface. Seol-ha can tell that this isn't just about the letter for him. The conversation takes a tense turn as Jeong-mu, the president, looks over the resignation letter, his voice dripping with sarcasm, as he comments on how everything Seol-ha works on always turns out perfect. But a resignation letter? That's a first. He asks why, but she calmly explains that it's for personal reasons. As Jeong-mu listens, he can't help but reflect on their 3 years together. Seol-ha had always been more than just a secretary, she was someone who made his work life smooth and efficient. She never needed instructions, she simply knew what to do, and whatever task she took on, she exceeded expectations. He remembers last summer, the time she took a vacation. During her absence, everything felt chaotic, and he realized how much he relied on her. Lost in thought, Jeong-mu sighs and rubs his temples, feeling the weight of the situation. Finally, he looks at her and softly speaks, admitting that he can't imagine running the company without her. He asks if there's any issue at work that's pushing her to leave, but Seol-ha reassures him that everything is fine. Not ready to accept her decision, Jeong-mu offers to raise her salary, knowing she's already well paid, but she declines, saying her current pay is more than enough. Determined, he offers a promotion, but she turns that down too, saying it would look like favoritism. Trying one last time, he even offers to buy her a car to make her commute easier. Seol-ha chuckles softly and reminds him that she never drives, because she's a terrible driver. At this point, Jeong-mu notices that no matter what he offers, her expression remains steady. She has made up her mind. He leans back against the desk, one hand resting on it as he looks at her, serious now. He tells her that if there's anything she needs, anything at all, she should let him know, and he'll make it happen, whatever it takes. Seol-ha's fists tighten, her face flushed as she nervously speaks, asking for something she never imagined she'd say. Jeong-mu seems caught off guard, but reassures her to just ask for whatever she wants. She hesitates, her heart pounding, and suddenly blurts out her request. The moment stretches uncomfortably, and she immediately regrets it, turning away and stumbling over an apology, wishing she could take back the words. She's flustered and embarrassed, but instead of dismissing her, Jeong-mu calmly says he'll consider it and give her an answer by the weekend. Later, she finds herself in the company cafeteria, trying to process what just happened. Over lunch, Seol-ha confides in her colleague about the surprising conversation with the president. Her friend is stunned, unable to believe what she's hearing, especially considering Jeong-mu's reputation as a young, successful CEO, who is admired by everyone around him. Her friend struggles to understand how Seol-ha, who's never been open about her feelings, could suddenly act so boldly. As her friend talks, Seol-ha's mind drifts back to the start of her feelings for Jeong-mu. It was 3 years ago, when she first became his secretary. There was one particular day that stood out. She had been helping him with his schedule, reminding him about an important meeting, when he noticed she looked cold. He kindly suggested she leave early, concerned for her well-being, but she reassured him she was fine and apologized for worrying him. Later that day, Seol-ha returned to her desk to find a hot pack sitting there. Surprised, she learned from a colleague that the president had thoughtfully given one to everyone because of the chilly weather. That small, caring gesture had stayed with her, slowly deepening the feelings she had been developing ever since they began working together. As Seol-ha approaches her desk, she notices a hot pack waiting for her with a small note attached. It simply reads, "You've worked hard." Her heart flutters as she thinks back to the moment her feelings for the president began to deepen. She remembers it clearly, how, at that time, she had unknowingly fallen into unrequited love. But those emotions became tangled the day she overheard her colleagues gossiping about the president being engaged to the youngest daughter of the Taeking group. It hit her hard, making her realize just how out of reach he was. As she absent-mindedly pours tea for him, her thoughts spiral, and she accidentally overfills his cup. Jeong-mu notices immediately and comments on her distraction. Concerned, he asks if something's wrong or if she's feeling unwell. Seol-ha quickly apologizes, trying to brush it off, but the weight of her feelings pushes her to prepare her resignation letter. Back in the present, she resumes her conversation with her friend. Her friend wonders aloud if maybe the president had always been into her, but Seol-ha dismisses it, explaining that he's only treating her well because of their professional relationship. They are just secretary and CEO, nothing more. Despite her attempt to brush it off, her friend insists that the president might have feelings for her, encouraging Seol-ha to consider it. Her friend reminds her that she's always talked about wanting to date someone special, and now she has the perfect opportunity. The president is tall, handsome, and his personality makes him stand out even more. Her friend has never met a guy like him. Seol-ha tries to brush off the suggestion, feeling confused and unsure about everything, but before she can respond properly, Jeong-mu walks in and stands right behind her. Her friend, not missing a beat, teases her, saying he's clearly interested and that she should meet him. As Seol-ha fumbles with her response, her name is suddenly called. The president, standing right there, speaks her name softly, pulling her attention away from the conversation. They step into the elevator together, and as the doors close, the president breaks the silence, casually mentioning that she hadn't replied to his message. Seol-ha is caught off guard, but quickly gets distracted when her phone buzzes. It's a message from her friend teasing her, saying the president seems jealous. Seol-ha brushes off the thought, convincing herself that it's just work, nothing more. Jeong-mu then shifts the conversation to work, asking about their upcoming meeting with Taeyong Construction. Seol-ha replies that the meeting is scheduled for 5 o'clock, trying to maintain her composure. But he doesn't let it go there. Noticing her checking her phone, he asks if it was something urgent. When she tells him it wasn't, he presses further, asking who it was. This catches her off guard. He's never asked personal questions like this before. Flustered, she stammers, unsure how to respond, while inwardly reminding herself not to overthink it. Maybe he's just being polite, she thinks. As the elevator reaches their floor, the doors open, and she tries to make a quick exit, saying she'll head out first. Before she can leave, the president calls her name, stopping her in her tracks. He steps closer, cornering her as he blocks her path. With a serious look, he brings up her earlier proposal, catching her completely off guard. He says he's ready to answer now and presses the button to keep the elevator from closing. His voice drops as he tells her they can sleep together, but there won't be any limits to the number of times. The president takes Seol-ha to a hotel, and as they kiss, her mind drifts back to the moment in the elevator. His words echo in her head, there's no limit to the number of times. Confused, she had asked what he meant, and he teased her, questioning whether she wasn't as bold as she seemed. Embarrassed but determined, Seol-ha's face had turned red, as she quietly mumbled her agreement. When he said he couldn't hear her, she had finally blurted out, "Fine, let's do it." Now, in the present, he checks in with her, asking if she's okay, offering to stop if she's uncomfortable. But Seol-ha reassures him that she's fine, and, feeling a rush of courage, pulls him toward the bed. They kiss again, and things quickly escalate as they become intimate. Afterward, as they lay together, Jeong-mu calls a cab for her. Seol-ha hesitates, mentioning the important meeting she's supposed to attend, but he tells her not to worry. He can handle it on his own, insisting she go home and rest. She blushes, still flustered by everything that happened. His words make her remember how exhausted she had been, and she awkwardly laughs, agreeing with him. Before leaving, she assures him that if he needs anything, he shouldn't hesitate to contact her. Then she steps into the cab and heads home. Once home, Seol-ha takes a long bath, trying to calm her racing thoughts. Sitting in the warm water, she scolds herself, "Are you crazy, Minute Seol-ha? How are you going to face the president tomorrow?" She lets out a long sigh, sinking further into the bath, but no matter how much she tries to clear her mind, her thoughts keep drifting back to him, especially to the moments they had just shared. His touch, his presence, it all keeps playing in her head, and she finds herself getting lost in those memories, her heart racing all over again. Seol-ha slaps her face gently to snap herself out of her trance. She taps her cheeks and shakes her head, trying to clear her thoughts. Her phone buzzes, and her heart leaps, thinking it might be a message from the president. But when she checks, it's just a reminder about a coupon that needs renewing. She tries to dismiss her hopes, reminding herself that they aren't even dating. She lies down on her bed, hoping to sleep, but the phone rings sharply, interrupting the quiet. Groggily, she answers, her voice still heavy with sleep. Seeing the president's name on the screen makes her sit up quickly, her heart racing. The president explains he's just checking on her to make sure she got home safely and is resting well. After the call ends, Seol-ha thinks she won't be able to sleep now, feeling a mix of excitement and embarrassment. She blushes and covers her face, overwhelmed by the fluttering in her chest. As Jeong-mu takes his bath, he reflects on their 3 years of working together. Despite the office rumors, her exceptional work has diminished them. They spend a lot of time together, and although he's noticed her, he's avoided acting on his feelings to prevent adding to the gossip. He remembers her recent bold request and thinks about how much she's affecting him. The next morning, Seol-ha arrives at the office and hands the president the schedule for their meetings. She also brings him coffee and a sandwich for breakfast. She tells him she moved his afternoon meeting to Friday, just as he asked. In his mind, he appreciates her thoroughness and thinks to himself that she's always reliable. As they head downstairs to the meeting, they get into the elevator. The president turns to her and asks if she slept well. Seol-ha, suddenly recalling their conversation from the previous night, feels her face heat up. She stammers, saying that she slept well and feels refreshed, trying to sound confident despite her embarrassment. The president chuckles and says he's glad she rested. Then he brings up his engagement, which catches Seol-ha off guard. Her mind races as she realizes her mistake. She mentally scolds herself, thinking about how naive she was to get involved with someone who is engaged. The president asks if she made the proposal because of the engagement rumor. Seol-ha is stunned and thinks, was it just a rumor? She struggles to find the right words. Just then, her phone vibrates. She checks the screen, and a new message immediately shifts her mood. When Seol-ha checks her phone, the president asks if the message is work-related. She replies that it's just something personal. Later, back in the office, she asks him for a day off the next day. He inquires if something is wrong, but she assures him it's nothing serious and that it won't affect her work. Despite her reassurances, he still looks worried. Every winter, Seol-ha visits her father in prison. He's serving a 10-year sentence for a hit-and-run accident, where he was found guilty of ignoring a victim, who was still alive. The evidence against him was clear, and the conviction was harsh. She struggles to come to terms with his situation, because she cares deeply for him. Her father has refused to see her during her visits, leaving her feeling confused and hurt. However, she is told that he feels better whenever she visits, even though he doesn't show it. It seems like he quietly waits for her each time. As Seol-ha leaves, she thanks the staff, saying she will come again. Winter is a tough season for her, filled with heavy emotions. She decides to visit a Christmas store called Ginny Angel. When she sees a snowman figure, the store owner tells her how popular it is and congratulates her on getting one. Seol-ha says she was actually hoping to find something else. The store owner suggests she could try trading the snowman with someone since it's so popular, but Seol-ha prefers to get what she wants herself. Deep down, she is hoping to find Rudolph. As she walks down the street, she calls her friend. Her friend asks how the visit went, and Seol-ha begins to share her thoughts. Seol-ha decides to call Eun-shim, her close friend who knows her well. Eun-shim had mentioned earlier that she was craving soybean stew, so Seol-ha makes a big pot with crab, hoping Eun-shim might want to come over for dinner. But Eun-shim calls back and says she isn't in the mood for dinner. Seol-ha insists it's okay, and that she just wants some company. Eun-shim then says she'll come over after all, telling Seol-ha to get ready. Seol-ha thanks her friend, feeling really grateful for her support. Just as she's about to hang up, Eun-shim mentions that the president came by earlier. Meanwhile, the president is worried about Seol-ha. She suddenly asked for a day off and hasn't been answering her phone, which makes him anxious. He wonders if something happened to her. When Seol-ha finally calls him back, he greets her with relief. She asks if everything is okay, and he tells her that the office has been chaotic without her. He is trying to stay calm while saying, "Are you trying to show me how essential you are as a secretary? And you haven't answered my calls all day." Seol-ha offers to handle anything urgent, but the president reassures her that everything is fine at work. He explains he was just worried because her sudden leave was unexpected. He adds that if she's uncomfortable discussing it, she doesn't have to, but he was genuinely concerned. Seol-ha replies that it's really nothing. Seol-ha thanks the president for his concern just as she hears her doorbell ring. She thinks it might be Eun-shim. She apologizes to the president for not being more available. He tells her it's fine, and she should go open the door. He tells her to get some rest and that they'll catch up next week. They finish their call, and the president wonders if he might have been too insistent, thinking about the doorbell. The next week at the office, the president overhears some staff talking about Seol-ha. They mention that she seems to be dating someone because she took a sudden leave last Friday, checks her phone a lot during work, and looks much better. As he walks by, he asks where Seol-ha is. The staff tells him she just stepped out to take a call. When he enters his office, he wonders if it's related to the doorbell from the other day. Seol-ha is already in his office and informs him that Taeyong Construction called. They want to meet as soon as possible, and President Kim will be coming in person. She tells him that she's scheduled the meeting for tomorrow evening. The president asks if there's anything else, and Seol-ha says she can't have lunch with him today because she has other plans. The president calls her name and asks why she's been avoiding him. She responds, confused, and he suggests maybe she's tired of him. The president asks if Seol-ha is tired of him, pointing out that she's been taking vacation days and wasn't at her desk that day. He even wonders if Eun-shim, who she has been spending time with, asked her not to have lunch with him. Seol-ha quickly explains that there's been a mix-up. She wasn't at her desk because she was busy setting up the meeting venue for tomorrow. She also had personal matters to handle on Friday. She's puzzled by his comment about Eun-shim introducing her to someone, saying she doesn't know who he's talking about. When the president mentions the doorbell from the other night, Seol-ha clarifies that it was Eun-shim at the door. The president, sounding relieved, says, "So, it was Eun-shim." Seol-ha starts to think about whether the president really believes she's been avoiding him. Just then, she hears a knock on his office door. One of the staff members apologizes for the interruption, saying there's an urgent meeting about the previous project and that they couldn't reach him earlier. After the staff member leaves, Seol-ha and the president don't have a chance to speak further. After the meeting, the president sees Seol-ha still working at her desk and asks if she hasn't clocked out yet. She tells him she just needs to finish a bit more work. He advises her not to push herself too hard as he heads back to his office. Seol-ha takes this chance to talk to him. She calls his name, and he stops to listen. She tells him to forget about her proposal from the other day, explaining that she was just feeling emotional. The president asks if he wasn't impressive enough that day. As Seol-ha tries to explain, he steps closer to her and says, "I like you, Seol-ha. I've been holding back for 3 years. Why else would I have accepted your proposal?" Seol-ha thinks to herself about how he's been holding back for so long. He admits he wanted to be close to her, but didn't think he had the right. Seol-ha tells him she likes him too. He gently touches her face, and she moves in to kiss him. But he grins and says, Seol-ha, you're getting ahead of yourself." She pulls back, embarrassed, and says she'll just get back to work. He tells her not to work overtime today and suggests she has plans. She asks, "Plans? What plans?" He replies, "We just made one." They book a hotel room and share a kiss. Seol-ha wonders why she's feeling more nervous than before as they lie on the bed. She asks, President, are you really okay with this? It might not be what you had in mind. You might hear a lot of nagging." The president tells her he's happy to listen to her nagging as they continue to kiss and become intimate. The next morning, Seol-ha wakes up feeling sore, but finds herself in the president's arms. She's surprised to see him again so soon and notices how handsome he looks even when asleep. As she reaches out to touch his face, he stirs and gently holds her hand. He asks if she's still wanting more from yesterday, and then pulls her closer, saying it would be wonderful to see her every morning. On Saturday, they go out for a meal at a restaurant. Seol-ha has trouble cutting her food, and the president notices. He takes the utensils from her and cuts her food, even though she insists she can manage. He smiles and says he's wanted to do this for her for a long time. On Sunday, they enjoy a walk together. At one point, Seol-ha leaves, and he calls her to remind her to let him know when she gets home safely. On her way back, she meets up with her best friend. They sit and discuss everything that's happened, and her friend advises her to officially start dating the president. As Seol-ha and her friend walk away, a man at the airport is on the phone while dragging his luggage. A little boy, pulling on his mother's hand and asking for something, accidentally bumps into the man's luggage, causing him to trip and fall. Instead of helping or showing any concern, the man just keeps walking as if nothing happened. The mother quickly goes to her son, who is still tugging at her arm, trying to get her attention. She is worried about him and tries to calm him down. Both the mother and her son are puzzled by the man's lack of reaction. They can't figure out why he is acting so indifferent. On their way to a meeting, the president asks Secretary Minute to book a multi-purpose room for him. He explains that Director Kim is someone who tends to drain others' energy. The president reaches for her hand, but she pulls away, worried someone might see them. He reassures her that there's no one around except for the CCTV. After checking the area twice, she lets him hold her hand. She asks if he needs a ride if he gets tired, but he says it's not necessary. They arrive at the meeting room and meet Director Kim. The president starts asking about the timeline for the land bidding, saying, "Didn't you mention it would take a year?" Director Kim seems distracted and keeps staring at the female lead. She feels uneasy under his gaze and tries to stay focused, but Director Kim's behavior is confusing her. The president calls out to Director Kim, asking where he has been since they were discussing the land bidding. Director Kim apologizes, saying he's getting old and couldn't focus. The president, frustrated, squeezes his papers tightly. Director Kim starts talking about the difficulties in getting approval for the land, which is a tourist spot. They continue with their discussion until the meeting ends. As they leave the room, Director Kim suggests they go somewhere else. Since the meeting is over, they agree. While they walk, Director Kim tries to hold the female lead's hand, but the president intervenes, sending her to fetch his phone from the car. As she leaves, Director Kim whispers to the president, commenting on how pretty and young Secretary Minute is and asks what her relationship is with him. The president, furious, slams his hand against the wall, knocking on it to show his frustration. He demands that Director Kim apologize to Secretary Minute and delete her contact immediately. Meanwhile, the female lead searches for the president's phone but can't find it. She receives a message from a number apologizing for the way the sender looked at her during the meeting. The president then returns, saying he has found his phone and they should leave. Back in Director Kim's office, he vows to make the president apologize for what happened. His secretary walks in, and Director Kim yells at him for not being there. The secretary explains he was picking up Ju Tae-gun from the airport. Tae-gun, the successor to the Taekang group, enters the office and settles in. Director Kim asks him if he understands how difficult it is to block an article from his father. Tae-gun promises his uncle a good position once he takes over Taekang. He then looks at the Venus land bidding documents and notes that their goals seem to align. The female lead asks the president about what happened in the meeting room. He doesn't respond. She wonders if Director Kim realized how important it was to handle things quickly. Noticing the bruises on his knuckles, she gets worried. "What's wrong with your hand? Did you at least hit him?" she asks. He downplays it, saying he just brushed against the wall. She says she knows how directors are and doubts it was a real fight. She sighs, relieved that he isn't badly hurt. As she gently bandages his wounds, he tells her to be gentle. She insists he needs to say if it hurts. He jokes about whether she likes this kind of thing, which makes her blush. He teases her about liking to be hurt, but she responds seriously, saying leaving scars is not okay. The president apologizes for not noticing the strange rumors about Director Kim sooner, and says he's sorry. She reassures him that he doesn't need to apologize and tells him to let her know if anything in the future makes him uncomfortable. He asks her what she thinks about him, and after a brief pause, she decides to head home. As she gets up from the sofa, he grabs her hand and pulls her onto his lap. "I'll take you home soon," he says, and they get intimate. As they ride the elevator, the female lead feels shy. Some women passing by whisper about her and the president. She tells herself to stay focused and not think about distractions. The president comments that she hasn't given him a chance to hold her hand today, trying to lighten the mood. She nervously responds, saying they're at the office and it's only been a week. The president jokes about how fast things are moving, comparing it to Romeo and Juliet's brief but intense romance. She points out that those two fell in love at first sight, but he insists he feels the same way about her. Surprised, she asks if he's serious. He says that since she started working there, his feelings have changed, and he was probably jealous before. He admits it's hard to hide feelings when you like someone and asks for her forgiveness. He takes her hand and says he'll try to treat her better. He talks about how much he restrained himself and says he'll behave at the office if she promises not to leave him. She firmly holds his hand and says she won't leave him, warning him not to run away. He jokes that she'd beat him if he did, and she agrees. The elevator doors open, and she mentions a meeting in Incheon the next day. She looks up to find the president's face pale, and asks what's wrong. He turns to a woman standing at the entrance and asks, "Mother?" The male lead tastes the food and comments on how perfect it is, praising her for her good judgment. His mother seems taken aback and asks why he's surprised to see her. He responds, noting that it's been 3 years since they last met, and suggesting she should be more cheerful about it. She brings up that it's been 2 years since he was in America, and that he came back for her wedding. He curtly remarks that it wasn't significant to him. She feels hurt and reflects on her age, wondering if that's the reason for the distance. He then inquires about the chairman's health. She reassures him that the chairman is doing fine, although he usually gets colds in winter. She adds that he is healthier than she is, so there's no need to worry. She then asks why he suddenly returned to Korea. He questions her sudden interest, noting that she never seemed to care before. She explains that she had a troubling dream about someone crying over an unresolved issue. She then asks if he still holds any resentment towards her, acknowledging the closeness he had with the person in her dream. She admits to feeling hurt. The female lead observes this interaction, noting that it's the first time she's seen the director in such a vulnerable state. She recalls the earlier conversation about the tea flowers, remembering how someone had commented on their wonderful scent. She happily acknowledges their appreciation, and then suggests that the person should return to their work. The male lead speaks without much emotion, telling her to continue talking while he deals with his headache. The female lead reflects on how the atmosphere in the director's office earlier seemed tense and unclear. She finishes a phone call, noting to herself that the director has a headache again, and had just taken some medicine. She tells the director she brought some herbal tea to help with his headache. The director thanks her and asks if she also brought the medicine. She mentions that he just took it, and apologizes for the interruption. The lady present assures her that it's fine and encourages her to continue. The female lead suggests that it might be better for the director to rest for a bit. He agrees and thanks her, asking her to go on with her conversation. The female lead excuses herself and leaves, feeling stressed. She reflects on how the situation hasn't changed much, as the director doesn't often talk about his mother, and it still feels unfamiliar. The room remains heavy with tension, but the director needs the medicine. The lady comments that he seems to get headaches often. He explains it's just from work. The lady observes that the director seemed more relaxed when the female lead was around and notes that she has a way of easing the tension. The male lead doesn't respond. She adds that the female lead seems like a really good person, which makes the male lead think that she is more than he deserves. Meanwhile, the female lead's friend asks her what she's thinking about. The friend admits to feeling jealous and unsure of what to do. Shim, is there someone who makes your heart skip a beat just by being around? The female lead asks her friend. Shim replies that it's been so long she's forgotten what that feels like. She then teases the female lead, saying she's really good at unrequited love and pulls her into a big hug. The moment is interrupted by a news update. Breaking news. Heavy snowfall is making the roads very slippery. Please be careful on your way home. Shim comments on how wearing so many clothes can be annoying. Meanwhile, the lady tells the male lead, let's go together this time. She remembers how she used to cry a lot, feeling like there was something left unsaid. The male lead reflects on a hit-and-run case from 10 years ago caused by drunk drivers. Even though the victim survived, he still feels strongly about the crime. He picks up a photo and asks the person in the picture why she is crying. He wonders if it's because he's the only one who came to visit her or if she still has something unresolved. He then picks up the phone and asks if it's a good time to talk. The male lead asks, can we talk on the phone? The man on the other end says, sure, go ahead. The male lead asks if he's busy this weekend. The man replies that he has a golf appointment with the chairman of the Kang Group and adds it's all political. The male lead acknowledges this and the man suggests he should come too, saying it would be good for him. The male lead mentions he already has plans for the weekend. The man suggests that plans can be changed, but the male lead insists his schedule is important. The man says there's no helping it and asks why the male lead called. The male lead then asks if they can leave together now. The man replies, nonsense, don't waste any more time. The male lead wonders if he really forgot everything. The next day, employees chat about the company's anniversary and the day off it brings. They ask the female lead what she's planning to do. She says she plans to relax while looking at her screen. They hand her a drink and wish her a good rest. She thanks them with a smile. Standing next to the male lead's desk, the female lead notes he doesn't look lively and suspects something might be wrong. He suddenly calls out to her, surprising her. He asks if she's okay because she looks stressed. She reassures him she's fine. He tells her she can leave early as he has a lot of work to do. She agrees and says, "Yes, sir." The female lead's friend is excited about having a day off tomorrow. The female lead, feeling guilty for not expressing her thoughts, is comforted by the male lead's concern. She drifts off thinking about going back to the director's place. Her friend cheerfully tells her to go and reminds her to be careful. The female lead thanks her and heads out. Meanwhile, the male lead is on the phone with someone discussing a gift. Just then, a loud crash interrupts the conversation. The male lead gets alarmed and calls out for his colleague. The female lead, noticing something wrong, rushes over and sees the male lead. He hugs her as she asks if he's okay. She mentions she planned to stay with him and covers him with a cardigan, noticing he looked cold. He tells her if she has any concerns, she should share them, even though he's unsure how much help he can be. He acknowledges that she seems worried about his mother from yesterday. She reassures him she's fine, but he insists it's serious. He gently holds her hand and says he won't let her go for the rest of his life. She is surprised and asks what's going on. He inquires about her plans for the day, and she explains she intended to leave work with him. He wraps the cardigan around her and suggests that something more important than work needs their attention. The male lead is in the kitchen, preparing a meal. He asks the female lead if the dress fits, noting it's the smallest size. She replies that it's a little tight, but still okay. He feels a bit embarrassed by her response. As he sets the food on the table, the female lead expresses her nervousness about the meal. He asks her to just eat if she's hungry. She takes a bite and confirms it tastes good. He tells her to eat slowly. While they watch a movie that she picked out, she comments on how amazing it is. The male lead doesn't say anything in response. She gets flustered and apologizes for her excitement. He then gently turns her face towards him and tells her that if she wants to touch him, she should just say so. They sit together on the couch, enjoying the soft, dim light of the living room. They both sense what's about to happen. Without saying anything, they lean in and kiss. The kiss becomes deeper, as they hold each other close and become intimate. After a while, they pull away and decide to take a bath. They fill the tub with warm water and get in, sitting close together. As they relax in the warm water, they talk and laugh. After the bath, they get out and sit on the edge of the bed, wrapped in towels. He puts his arm around her, and she feels at ease with him. While they are sitting there, something falls out of her bag on the floor next to them. He picks it up, and they both look at it. She calls out his name as he stares at the charm in his hand. He looks up, surprised to see her interested in the company's model. She thinks to herself that these charms are really popular. He asks if she collects all the seasons, and she explains that she only collects the winter ones, putting the charm back in her bag. He then asks which version she is looking for, and she says it's Rudolph because it's the cutest. He's amazed and then shifts the topic, asking if she's hungry and offering to let her cook. She thinks to herself that cooking isn't her strong suit, but he insists it's not necessary. The phone rings, and she picks it up, realizing Unsim is done. She says she'll be back later, and heads out to meet her friend. As she steps outside, she takes a deep breath and feels refreshed. She asks her friend if there were many guests, and her friend, sounding a bit down, explains that it's been tough with the guests. But then she brightens up, mentioning that a super cool guest was there, Cho Tae-gun, the eldest son of the Tae-ten group. The female lead reacts with disgust, but her friend explains that Tae-gun was there to buy a limited edition watch, which was pretty impressive. The female lead wonders if her friend likes him, but her friend quickly points out that he's not as good-looking as director Cha. The female lead insists that her director is the most handsome, and she says this while sipping her coffee. The male lead is sitting at his desk, focused on writing with his fountain pen. After he finishes, he calls his secretary. He tells her he needs something, and she asks if he needs an ink refill. He tells her it's done and just to send the location, but before he can hang up, the female lead cuts in, saying she's coming instead. A few minutes later, she bursts into his office with a cheerful smile, and says she brought the last few items he needed because she knows he uses a fountain pen. He laughs and flirts with her, saying he doesn't know what he'd do without her. She blushes and gets flustered, stuttering that she has something urgent to do. She quickly heads for the door, laughing nervously as she says she'll see him later. As she leaves, she hears people talking about a Kang group meeting at a hotel. The male lead had told her it was just a rumor, but now she starts to wonder if it's true. The next morning, Eun-shim catches up with her. Eun-shim says she woke up early to go with her, but she was already gone. As they chat, the female lead remembers a court case she heard about involving a doll. The defendant claimed he didn't remember dismembering it, and the judge hinted that the little girl's murder might be connected to her father. The memory gives her chills. Every time she visits the cemetery, she brings the doll with her, worried about running into the child's family. She always goes the day before the anniversary to avoid them. Her friend suggests they go to a party at the Ima Hotel. The female lead asks if they can get in without invitations, but her friend says it's fine because the hotel is celebrating its 50th anniversary, so the party is open to everyone. The next day, the female lead, Eun-shim, and the male lead arrive at the hotel party. The director has just arrived when a lady approaches him, chatting and making physical contact. When the female lead sees this, she feels a pang of discomfort. She recognizes the lady as Jo Kang-hee, the youngest daughter of the Kang group. The male lead had told her he was going to see his mom, but now she wonders if it was actually a meeting. She feels a twinge of doubt. Eun-shim notices the female lead's discomfort, and calls out to her. The female lead excuses herself, saying she needs to use the restroom. As she enters, Eun-shim follows her and waits outside. Meanwhile, the son of the Kang group appears, looking for his sister Jo Kang-hee, who is still talking to the male lead. He notices a small lip balm rolling on the floor, and, without thinking, kicks it away. Eun-shim sees this and shouts, "Hey, you can't just kick other people's things." The son of the Kang group doesn't look at Eun-shim as he replies, "If you didn't want it to get kicked, you should have kept it better." Eun-shim bends down to pick up her things and asks, "What did you say?" When she looks up, the son finally notices her and is surprised by how beautiful she is. He hands her his business card and leans in to whisper, "You should contact me for compensation." She looks at the card and realizes who the man is. She thinks to herself that it makes sense he looked familiar. She hadn't recognized him before because his appearance had overshadowed his identity. Her friend, Eun-shim, understands who he is too. She reflects on the rumors about him and realizes that even though he's a young businessman, he's already causing a stir at Taikang. She notes that despite his success, he can't hide his true nature. The female lead decides not to let this unexpected encounter ruin her evening. She meets up with Eun-shim, and they agree to enjoy the party. As they start having fun, she tells herself not to let the awkward situation affect their night. She plans to enjoy the rest of the evening and deal with the encounter another time. The male lead's friend is brushing off dust from his coat, but he tells her to leave it as it is, so people don't get the wrong idea. They overhear people whispering about rumors of their engagement. She doesn't mind the rumors and even says she likes the idea, but he tells her he doesn't. She asks him why and if he has a girlfriend or boyfriend. He sighs, saying it's time for his appointment, and he needs to leave. She suggests they have a meal together another time, but he says he has to meet someone. He tells her if there's another event, they might see each other again, and then he walks away. He meets his mom, and they get ready to visit the cemetery. She gives him some nuts that help with headaches, and hands him a skirt for his secretary. She asks if they still meet up, and he replies that he enjoyed the tea party, and would like to see her again if he has time. The president says it's good to hear that and that they need to leave now. When they reach the cemetery, His mother places all the gifts on the gravestone and kneels down in tears, apologizing for leaving him with the burden. She says she couldn't accept that Han-young was gone and apologizes to Jeong-mu. She expresses regret that it wasn't just her who went, but that they should have gone together. The male lead says he has always regretted that day, but his mother tells him it's not his fault and he should stop blaming himself. When the president gets back to his room, he remembers that his mom had picked up a snowman figurine from his sister's grave and asked if it was his or someone else's. He recalls telling her that every year, someone leaves a snowman figurine on the grave, but he doesn't know who. It could be a friend, an acquaintance, or even his sister's friend. He wonders if it's just a coincidence that his secretary, Minute, has the same snowman figurine on her desk. The next day, as he heads to the office, reporters crowd around him, inspecting everything. The female lead and her best friend see each other, but pretend not to know one another, likely to avoid getting attention from the reporters. The reporters throw out questions one after another. One asks, "How do you treat your employees, Mr. President?" Another asks, "How often do you check on the cleanliness of your office?" The president smiles slightly and replies, "I'm sure you've checked everything you need to. Let's wrap this up, shall we?" The reporters agree and leave. Meanwhile, the female lead feels exhausted. She has been lying awake at night, worrying about the upcoming meeting. Seeing the president send the reporters away, she decides it's a good time to talk to him. She gathers her courage and calls him. He asks if she has some free time this evening. She agrees, curious about what he wants to discuss. As she waits for him to continue, she notices his expression becoming serious. Before he can say more, one of his staff members approaches and whispers something in his ear. The president then asks if Cha Tae-gun has arrived. The secretary tells the director to reach out if he needs anything and then leaves his office. The director turns to his associate, puzzled, as he didn't remember scheduling a meeting. The son of the Kang group explains that he's here with a proposal for a potential relationship with his sister, suggesting it could be beneficial for forming an alliance with the president of Venus Corporation. He warns that if this deal doesn't work out, the director might end up in a difficult position, one he'd likely want to avoid. He then hints that the director's reluctance is likely because of his secretary. The director remains composed and responds without showing any emotion. The son of the Kang group is frustrated but hides it well. He reflects on how the director has always maintained an air of superiority, unaffected by challenges. As he exits, he notices the secretary and her friend talking. Her friend asks about the strawberries, and the secretary mentions that she knew about the craving and also shares that she has plans to go out for dinner with the director later. Her friend advises her to be open about her feelings, and the secretary agrees. The son of the Kang group takes note of their interaction. As they head back, he suddenly apologizes, which catches her off guard and hurts her. He tells her he didn't expect her to be upset about the proposal and the misunderstanding with the engagement. He explains that people often misunderstand these things. He shares that he went to see his mother, and then they both visited his sister's grave. When she asks about his sister, he says she passed away in an accident 10 years ago. He tells her they visited her grave together. She feels sorry and hugs him with tears in her eyes, apologizing for not knowing about his loss. He hugs her back and assures her it's okay. Secretary Min's co-workers call out to her, but when she responds, they say never mind. They whisper to each other, commenting on how her eyes are puffy, and that she must have been crying. Secretary Minute then gets up to find the director. When she finds him, she hands over the documents for the reporters and asks if they are enough. He looks at them and says they are fine, but notices her puffy eyes and tells her to stop crying. She says she can't. Before they can talk more, a staff member approaches, and Secretary Minute quickly hides behind the director. Once the staff member leaves, the director asks what she's doing this weekend and suggests they hang out. The president and the female lead are in a room, sharing a passionate kiss. She is sitting on his lap as they become more intimate. Meanwhile, young Master Taegun is in a private room at a club, enjoying time with two ladies. Suddenly, a guy walks in, and Taegun's face changes as he remembers being slapped by someone who asked him if Venus was worth the risk and if Jeong-mu was worse than him. Just then, another man bursts into the room, coughing and holding a mysterious package. Taegun looks at the package and asks why it took so long when he only ordered one pill. The man tries to explain, but Taegun interrupts him, looking angry. He throws a small object at the man's face, hitting him. Taegun says he will tell Chairman Cha himself and mentions a golf round next week. He also thinks about how to separate the people he's upset with. The female lead opens a can of beer and sits next to the president, asking if he wants to join her for a drink. She raises an eyebrow and asks if he usually orders this in the office. The president nods, saying he doesn't want to make any mistakes. As they drink, she notices he's getting drunk quickly. Within 10 minutes, he's slurring his words and stumbling. She watches him with concern and curiosity. Suddenly, the president looks at her with glassy eyes and asks her to call him by his name, not his title. The female lead thinks to herself that she can't keep calling him director forever. Meanwhile, the man who delivered something to Taegun leaves the room, smirking and holding his phone. He almost bumps into someone and apologizes before walking away. He recognizes the person he nearly hit as Director Kim Woo-hee and realizes Kim Woo-hee is also involved with Cho Taegun. The next morning, the female lead tries to wake up the president by whispering his name 3 times, but he stays asleep. The alarm wakes her up, and she starts thinking about Director Cho's birthday. She gets ready and heads out, her mind on the upcoming event. As she walks, a speeding car almost hits her. A quick hand pulls her back just in time. She turns to thank the person, but notices they just stare at her. She tries to dismiss it, saying it's okay, and moves on. She arrives at the venue and meets Director Cho. They greet each other and are about to go inside when a woman approaches, engaging them in conversation. As Director Cho admires her, his phone rings, interrupting the moment. He answers, and his mother wishes him a happy birthday. She mentions she'll be bringing seaweed soup and Seol-ha along. As they drive back, Director Cho notices she seems a bit different from earlier. He heard her talk with the stranger at the party and wonders if it bothered her. He looks at her with concern and asks if something is wrong. She shakes her head and says that everything is fine, trying to reassure him. When they arrive at her apartment, she reaches into her bag and pulls out a small gift. She hands it to him with a shy smile and says, "Happy birthday." She looks a little embarrassed and adds that it's nothing special, considering he already has so much. Director Cho's face lights up with a warm smile, as he thanks her, and says the gift is perfect. He seems genuinely touched. She tells him to open the gift later, not right now, and he nods in understanding. As she starts to get out of the car, he calls her name softly. She turns back to look at him, and he tells her he will call her later and reminds her to be safe. She smiles at him and wishes him a good night. Director Cho watches her get out of the car and walk towards her apartment. He keeps his gaze on her until she disappears into the night, feeling a sense of warmth from their time together. His fists clench tight, the frustration boiling inside him. His father's cold words cut deep, and it's all he can do to stay calm. But then, the memories come rushing back, hitting him like a wave he can't stop. He remembers that day, the day everything changed. It was the day Jong-young had the accident. He sees it so clearly in his mind, like it just happened. His father didn't show up to the funeral, didn't even bother to pretend he cared, too scared someone might figure out the truth about his other child. Jeong-mu can still feel the anger and pain from that day, how alone he felt, how much it hurt to realize his father cared more about his reputation than his family. He takes a step closer to his father, his voice low but steady. He doesn't care about the family name anymore, It's just a reminder of the blood they share and nothing more. He won't let that name keep him trapped, won't let it dictate how he lives his life. The promise he made, the one he clung to for so long, doesn't mean anything now, not after Hyun-young is gone. The weight of it all presses down on him, but he won't back down, not this time. The memory of the accident comes back sharper now, and he can see it all so clearly. That winter, the snow came early, soft and quiet at first, but it didn't feel beautiful or magical to him. All it did was remind him of how cold everything had become, how empty life felt after that day. It's a memory that never fades, no matter how hard he tries to push it away. It's there, just like the anger, just like the determination to finally stand up for himself and live the life he wants, not the one his father demands. Hyun-young collapses so suddenly that no one has time to react. They rush to get her tested, hoping it's nothing serious, but when the results come back, it's worse than they feared. Jeong-mu asks the doctors over and over if there's a way to treat her, if she'll get better, but the answers are never what he wants to hear. He tries everything, pulling every string he can think of, but nothing works. In the end, there's only one option left. He goes to his father, standing in front of the man he hates more than anything, and begs him to save her. His father listens, cold and calculating as always, and offers him a deal. He'll save Hyun-young, but only if Jeong-mu agrees to give him anything he asks for. Desperate and out of options, he agrees. His father doesn't even blink, acting like he's some untouchable god, above everyone else. Jeong-mu swallows his pride, his disgust, everything, because this is for Hyun-young. His father even mentions how he expects him to be useful, throwing in a comment about his education at Korea University like it's some kind of test. It's humiliating, but he doesn't care. Nothing matters except saving her. But none of it works. The accident happens, and Hyun-young is gone anyway. No deal, no promise, no sacrifice could change that. He tries to hold himself together afterward, but it feels impossible. He thinks about calling his mother, maybe to find some kind of comfort, but he can't bring himself to do it. He promises himself he'll visit her later, but deep down, he knows it's just another excuse to avoid facing her right now. The next day at work, Seol-ha calls him, her voice soft and full of concern. She asks if he's okay, if he's feeling unwell, and he brushes it off, saying he just needs some rest. She tells him to see a doctor and make sure he's taking care of himself, but he barely listens. When he says her name, she stumbles over her words, nervous that she's upset him somehow. He apologizes, saying he's sorry if she felt flustered after seeing that article. She quickly reassures him, telling him it's not true and everything is fine, but he doesn't say much after that. The office is quiet, the kind of quiet that makes everything feel heavier than it already is. Back at home, his father is lying in bed, still feeling sick, holding a glass cup in his hand like it's the only thing keeping him steady. The room is dim, and he's coughing so much that resting feels impossible. His thoughts are all over the place, and he knows he needs to see Seol-ha, but his body won't cooperate. As he sits there, his phone buzzes, lighting up the dark room. He picks it up and reads the message, and his face twists into a frown. It's something cruel, something about his twin sister, the one who's gone now. It's a sharp reminder that even after death, people are watching, judging, and making their comments. The weight of it all presses down on him, and for a moment, he just sits there, letting the silence take over. At the office, Seol-ha works quietly at her desk, her focus on the screen in front of her. The steady sound of typing fills the room, until she suddenly feels a presence behind her. She turns, startled, and her eyes land on the chairman, President Cha's father, standing there with his usual stern expression. He doesn't waste any time, his voice calm, but sharp as he asks her how long she's been working for his son. She answers quickly, saying it's been 3 years, but the way his face tightens makes her uneasy. He doesn't look pleased, and she wonders what she might have said wrong. Then he speaks again, his words cutting and deliberate, telling her 3 years is too long. It takes her a moment to understand what he's getting at, but when he continues, it becomes clear. He mentions that President Cha is getting engaged soon, and the wedding plans with the youngest daughter of the Taegang group are already in motion. His tone grows colder, as he warns her about rumors, especially after the article from yesterday, and tells her to be careful. His words are heavy with implication, as if he's accusing her of something without saying it outright. He goes on, telling her that it's time to end things properly after having her fun. The meaning behind his words stings, and she feels the weight of his judgment pressing down on her. He doesn't give her a chance to respond before turning and walking away, leaving her sitting there, her hands frozen over the keyboard as his warning echoes in her mind. At home, President Cha sits alone in the dim light of his room, a glass cup in his hand, his thoughts spinning out of control. The message he read earlier won't leave him alone, the words replaying over and over in his head. He tries not to think about it, tries to push the past out of his mind, but it keeps coming back no matter how hard he fights it. He stares at his phone, his thumb hovering over the screen, wondering what he's supposed to do next. The weight of everything feels heavier than usual, pressing down on him until it's hard to breathe. The silence is broken when he gets up and heads out, his steps heavy as he moves through the dark streets toward a building he's been avoiding for a long time. Inside, he finds a man waiting for him, someone he doesn't fully trust but can't ignore. The man looks surprised to see him, his brows lifting as he says he didn't expect him to show up so soon. President Cha doesn't bother with small talk, his voice sharp and demanding as he asks what the man is plotting. The air between them is tense, thick with unspoken words and mistrust. He stands there, trying to piece everything together, his mind racing as he searches for answers in the man's guarded expression. Seol-ha steps out of the office with her bag, walking down the quiet hallway when her phone buzzes. She checks it and sees a message from President Cha, saying something urgent has come up and he can't meet her today. He apologizes for keeping her waiting, but she only stares at the screen for a moment before putting her phone away. She isn't surprised, but it still hurts more than she thought it would. As she walks, her thoughts swirl around the idea that this love was never going to last. It had started because of her own selfish hopes, and she knew it couldn't survive the world they lived in. Even though she had tried to prepare herself, the pain feels sharper and heavier than she imagined, each step taking her closer to the reality she wanted to avoid. President Cha enters the dimly lit building later that night, the air feeling cold and heavy as he moves through it. A man stands near the center of the room, looking casual and almost amused as he greets him. The man says he's surprised to see him arrive so quickly and jokes about how rushed he seems, but President Cha doesn't have time for games. He demands to know what the man is planning, his voice sharp and filled with impatience. The man pulls a card from his jacket and hands it to him, introducing himself as Kim Sung-chan from the Venus department store security team. President Cha barely glances at the card and tells him to get to the point, not interested in pleasantries. Kim Sung looks serious now and asks how much President Cha knows about Seol-ha. The question catches him off guard, and he hesitates before asking what he means. Kim Sung explains that he and Seol-ha were in the same orphanage for about a year, a long time ago. President Cha freezes as the words sink in, completely shocked. He had no idea she had a history like this, or that someone from her past would show up like this. For a moment, he doesn't know what to say, the realization hitting him harder than he expected as he tries to make sense of what he just learned. President Cha narrows his eyes and pushes the thoughts out of his mind. He tells the man that he's had enough of his games and warns him to never contact him again. His voice is cold as he says that someone like him has no right to even say her name. Without waiting for response, he turns on his heel, ready to leave, but the man calls out to him, stopping him in his tracks. The name the man says, Minute Jeong-mu, makes him freeze. The air feels heavier as he listens, and the man starts explaining. He says Minute Jeong-mu had been involved in a hit-and-run accident, driving drunk, and ended up with a life sentence. The words dig deeper when the man mentions it happened on a snowy day, the same day her father had killed his sister. President Seol-ha feels like the ground shifts beneath him. His face changes instantly, his jaw tightening as his thoughts race. His chest feels heavy, and the weight of everything crashes down on him at once. Seol-ha lies on her bed, her phone resting beside her as she stares at the ceiling. She has been waiting for him to call or text, but there's been nothing. The silence feels endless, and though she wants to reach out first, she doesn't know what to say or how to start. She sighs and turns her head, noticing the cupboard next to her slightly open. Something has fallen to the floor, and she reaches for it. Picking it up, she realizes it must have been something he dropped the last time he was here before leaving for his trip. She holds it for a moment, and her mind drifts back to that time. She remembers how he had forgotten little things, like when he came to her place and said it was his first time there. She had teased him, saying she would have cleaned up better if she'd known he was coming, but he told her it was fine, calling the place clean and cozy. She had smiled and explained that she usually kept it even tidier, but before she could say more, he had wrapped his arms around her from behind. He whispered that if they lived together, she wouldn't have to worry about cleaning anymore. He even said he could cook dinner for them, and she had laughed, quickly saying she'd handle it herself. The memory feels so vivid, so close, but now it feels like a different world, one she can't seem to reach anymore. Her thoughts drift to the time they sat together, facing each other with her graduation photos spread between them. She remembers how the atmosphere had shifted, their words slowing as the closeness between them grew. He had said he didn't come for this, but she had smiled and admitted that she had called him over exactly for this reason. The honesty in her voice had made something snap between them, and before long, their emotions took over completely, and they fell into each other. It was a moment that had felt right then, filled with warmth and something deeper, but now it lingers in her mind as a bittersweet memory. Back in her quiet home, she looks around the familiar space that has always been her safe haven. It's her world, small and contained, but now the silence within it feels heavier than ever, almost suffocating. She realizes she's waiting for something, anything, but all she hears is the hum of her thoughts. The next day at the Venus Company, he sits at his desk, staring blankly ahead. His mind is trapped in the conversation with Kim Sung from the night before, replaying every word. He remembers demanding to know why Kim Sung was revealing all of this to him, and the man had countered with a question that threw him off balance. He had asked if President Seol-ha understood what truly elevates someone's life. President Seol-ha had replied curtly, saying it all comes down to money, but Kim Sung had shaken his head, his expression cold and sharp, as he named his price, 100 million won. He had given him 3 weeks to deliver, but what had stuck most was the threat that followed. If there was no response, Kim Sung had promised to take everything directly to her, pointing out that she worked under the same roof as him. He leans back in his chair, his hand brushing through his hair as he tries to make sense of it all. Kim Sung's words were calculated, designed to hit where it hurt most, and he knows it. He tells himself that if it's just money, he can handle it, no matter the amount, but it doesn't feel that simple. There's something about Kim Sung's tone, the way he warned not to assume money was his only weapon, that leaves him uneasy. He wonders what else the man might be hiding, what other truths could be lurking beneath the surface. The mention of Minute Jeong-mu being her father had already shaken him, but now it feels like another piece of a puzzle he can't put together. He knows he shouldn't jump to conclusions, but the weight of it all presses down harder with every passing minute. He picks up his phone, his fingers hesitating for just a moment before dialing. When the call connects, his voice is steady, though there's a hint of urgency as he instructs the person on the other end to start digging into Minute Jeong-mu. He wants everything, details about the case, the hit and run, and whether he's truly the man Kim Sung claims he is. There's a part of him that hopes this is all some twisted lie, but another part knows better. As he sets the phone down, the discomfort gnaws at him, and he feels the weight of the truth creeping closer, whether he's ready for it or not. The shop is quiet after the customer leaves, and the sound of the door closing echoes softly. She stretches her arms, letting out a small sigh as she murmurs about finally getting a moment to breathe. She moves back to her work, arranging clothes on a nearby rack, when she suddenly feels a presence behind her. A familiar voice speaks up, asking why she hasn't reached out to him. She turns around quickly and finds Ju Taegun standing there, his hand resting casually in his pocket, a faint smirk on his face. She doesn't react to his teasing and instead grabs a bag from the counter, hands it to him, and calmly explains the return policy. He doesn't take it seriously, his tone playful, as he asks if she's really not going to take any compensation. He even offers to pay her several times over, but she shakes her head and politely declines, wishing him a good day. He lingers for a moment before setting a small box on the table, giving her one last look before walking out. She hesitates, unsure of his intentions, but curiosity gets the best of her, and she opens the box. Inside is an expensive-looking lip balm, the kind she could never justify buying for herself. She wonders what he's trying to say with this gesture, why he would bother to give her something so unnecessary. Meanwhile, outside, Ju Taegun walks casually toward his car, handing a shopping bag to his guard before getting in. He leans back in his seat, his mind still on her. There's something about the way she carries herself, her quiet determination, that intrigues him. He decides that with enough time and patience, he'll find a way to bring her closer to him. At the office later that day, President Cha is coughing quietly at his desk when she comes in to brief him about a delayed report from Taegang Construction. He listens without much reaction, nodding as she speaks, and then asks her to arrange an appointment with a secretary for the following week. She agrees but can't help noticing how his cough sounds worse than before. Concerned, she gently suggests he should see a doctor, but he brushes it off and instead tells her to leave work early and get some rest. She turns to go, but just as she reaches the door, he calls her name. She stops and looks back, surprised when he walks over to her and places a hand lightly on her forehead. He frowns slightly and tells her she doesn't have a fever, but still insists she needs to take care of herself and rest. She nods, feeling a bit flustered by the unexpected gesture, and leaves the room. As she steps outside the building, she notices her own cough starting up again, and wonders if she might be coming down with something after all. Her thoughts drift to him, though, and the way he seemed distracted today. She wonders if he's had another difficult conversation with the chairman, imagining all the possible outcomes, and trying to piece together what might be going on in his mind. Lost in thought, she decides she'll bring up her worries with him later, even if it's just over the phone. She's about to continue walking when a voice interrupts her from behind. Turning around, she's surprised to see his mother standing there with a warm smile. The older woman kindly suggests they have dinner together, mentioning that she hasn't eaten yet. For a moment, she hesitates, but then agrees, realizing she could use some company. Meanwhile, back at the office, he glances at his phone, wondering if the pharmacy nearby is still open. His cough has been getting worse, but before he can decide, there's a knock at the door. The sound pulls him out of his thoughts, and when the door opens, he's greeted by someone he hasn't seen in a long time. He acknowledges them with a brief nod and invites them to sit. Once they are settled, the visitor hands him a folder. He opens it without much thought at first, but as his eyes land on the images inside, something inside him twists. His grip on the paper tightens, as he stares at a picture connected to a painful moment from the past. The emotions hit him hard, and his voice turns bitter, as he remarks that there had been time to save her. If her death had been instant, at least she wouldn't have had to endure so much suffering. The visitor, Mu Young, clears his throat and starts explaining the details behind his findings. He admits that much of what they know is based on speculation pieced together from the autopsy report and other notes. The scene of the accident had no CCTV cameras, which made the original investigation nearly impossible. However, during a recent follow-up, something crucial came to light. The team found footage from cameras on the road leading to the site of the incident, but unfortunately, this discovery came far too late to make a difference back then. As he talks, Moo-young reaches into his bag and hands over another document. He takes the paper and scans it carefully, his jaw tightening as he reads. Moo-young continues, explaining that they brought in an expert to analyze the footage. It turns out there's a connection to someone named Minute Dong-woo. The analysis isn't perfect, and there are some inconsistencies, but the evidence points strongly in his direction. The car involved wasn't registered under his name, which complicates things, but there's still a chance the link could be real. Moo-young emphasizes that despite these uncertainties, Minute Dong-woo remains a central figure in the case. He doesn't say anything at first, but his silence speaks volumes. The weight of this new information presses down on him, and the room feels heavier. It's not just about the past anymore, it's about what he's supposed to do now with this knowledge. He stays quiet, holding the paper tightly, his thoughts spinning. His fingers fidget against the edges, as his mind drifts further into the memories he's tried so hard to bury. His mother's words echo clearly now, the ones she shared late at night, when guilt seemed to weigh her down the most. She had told him about her dreams, filled with regret and pain, and how no matter how much time passed, the burden never seemed to ease. Those words had clung to him, sinking deep into his heart, and now they rise again, bringing back the ache he thought he had learned to manage. He feels the familiar mix of emotions creeping in, a combination of love so strong it hurt, regret he couldn't shake, and guilt that refused to let go. He remembers the moments that brought him here, the ones that showed him how deeply he could care for someone. Those feelings had grown so strong they felt impossible to carry, almost suffocating in their intensity. Every single day, they threatened to tip him over the edge, pulling him closer to a place where he felt like he couldn't control them anymore. The questions start to fill his mind again, the same ones he's asked himself countless times. Why did it have to end this way? Why was something as pure as love so hard to hold on to? He had thought of his love as a strength once, something that made him better, but now he isn't so sure. It feels more like a weakness, something that strips him bare and leaves him raw. The feelings are so big, so overwhelming, that they silence him completely, stealing any words he might have used to describe them. Across town, the restaurant is alive with noise and laughter, filled with people enjoying their meals. At the bar, Seol-ha waits, trying not to let her nerves get the better of her. She hadn't expected to end up here, waiting for his mother after an invitation that had caught her completely off guard. She had almost said no but found herself agreeing anyway, unsure why she had done it. She looks around the room, her thoughts scattered, when the door opens, and a man steps inside. A quiet ripple moves through the restaurant, as heads turn to look at him. A couple of people whisper that he's the owner, and someone nearby confirms it, saying they'd heard about him earlier. He walks in with a calm presence, holding a tablet in one hand as he talks to one of the staff. His voice is steady as he asks about a whiskey delivery, wanting to confirm when it's arriving. Seol-ha glances at him briefly, but quickly looks away, focusing back on her hands. She grips her glass tightly, wondering if this dinner will be as uncomfortable as she fears or if there's a chance it could turn out differently. The hum of conversation around her fades into the background as her thoughts take over, leaving her somewhere between anticipation and unease. The attendant tells him that the whiskey delivery is expected tomorrow, but the heavy snow might cause a delay until late in the afternoon. He looks around the room and notices Seol-ha and the older woman sitting together, but doesn't say anything right away. When the attendant asks if he's heading home, he takes a moment before saying he'll check the storage room first. Meanwhile, the older woman turns to Seol-ha and mentions how beautiful the atmosphere is in the restaurant. Seol-ha agrees and says the cocktails are great, surprised that such a nice place is so close to home. The older woman explains that the interior has been redone recently, but the restaurant itself has been around for a long time. She tells Seol-ha how she used to come here often with Jeong-mu's father, which leads her to bring up Jeong-mu. She mentions hoping things work out between Seol-ha and him, even suggesting that marriage might be on Jeong-mu's mind. Seol-ha is surprised by the comment and thinks about it as she takes a sip of her drink. The older woman continues, sharing more about Jeong-mu, saying he has been more reserved since the accident, but is still kind and warm-hearted. Seol-ha listens closely, and the woman explains that Jeong-mu had a twin sister, born just 2 minutes after him. His sister had been the victim of a hit-and-run and died way too young. Seol-ha realizes that this is the same tragic accident Jeong-mu had mentioned before, connecting the dots between what she heard and what he had told her. Elsewhere, Ju Tae-gun is in the middle of an intimate moment with someone. While things are happening, his thoughts wander to the idea of marriage. He briefly recalls a woman he had seen earlier wearing a refined kimono. His mind lingers on her for a moment, but then, when he's asked when they can meet again, he bluntly says there won't be a next time. He tells her that he never sleeps with the same person twice. The woman, frustrated, asks why he's acting that way, but he doesn't respond. He's too busy looking at his phone, getting more annoyed because someone hasn't answered his calls, especially when it's about information concerning Seol-ha. He mutters about how useless the information is and complains about the person's incompetence. Back at the restaurant, dinner is over. The older woman gets into her car, waving goodbye to Seol-ha and telling her to get home safely and contact her when she arrives. Seol-ha waves back, promising she'll do the same. As the car drives off, she starts walking. She notices the snow is heavier than she thought and wonders if the president is still in his meeting. She sends him a message, asking him to let her know when it's done, because she needs to talk to him about something. She figures he's probably busy since he hasn't replied yet. She talks to herself quietly, deciding that tonight, she's going to end things. Suddenly, she hears a voice behind her asking if her boyfriend upset her. She turns around to see a man with brown hair. He says he heard her sighs from a distance. She asks if he came for a drink, and he says he did. She introduces herself, and he offers to give her a ride, pointing out the heavy snow and nearby construction. She politely says no, telling him she has another stop to make. Before she can walk away, he rushes off and comes back with an umbrella, saying he can't let a potential regular customer leave in this weather. Seol-ha realizes he isn't just a customer, but works at the restaurant. She takes the umbrella, thanking him. She suggests giving him her account number so she can transfer the money for it, saying she doesn't believe in free favors. He tells her it's not necessary, calling it a gift. She accepts, saying she'll make good use of it. She opens the umbrella, walks away, and he watches her until she's out of sight. When she gets home, she keeps her head down, weighed down by her thoughts. He stands outside, holding a toy, thinking about the guilt he feels. He wonders if things could have turned out differently if he had acted sooner. He thinks about the loss and how it has affected the family left behind. Now, he realizes that the family is her, and he feels completely at a loss for what to say. While he stands there, his phone buzzes, showing 2 missed calls from her. He pauses for a moment, wondering if she's staying up waiting for him to call back. He decides to pick up, but when he answers, it's not her voice. An unfamiliar voice asks about his relationship with her. Confused and worried, he asks who's speaking, only to find out that it's an emergency operator, telling him she's being taken to the nearest hospital. The words hit him hard. He freezes for a second before dropping the phone. His mind starts racing, and he runs, feeling desperate. Deep down, he always knew the truth. No matter what her past was or who she was, she had always been the one who filled his world and affected him deeply. She was always the most important person to him. He had heard about love at first sight before, how it could happen in just a few seconds. The biggest company in Korea, Venus, had been his dream since he was a child, but dreams like that come with challenges. It's hard to find the right person when so many are focused on appearances or success. But when he saw her, it didn't even take 3 seconds. Her confidence and sincerity caught his attention right away. Her presence stayed with him, and soon, he couldn't imagine life without her. On a snowy day, a serious accident happens near a crosswalk. She's one of the victims and hasn't woken up yet. As he rushes to the hospital, a red light stops him, and the weight of everything hits him. He blames himself and leaves his car behind, running straight into the hospital. He asks for her and is directed to the bed behind a curtain. There she is, lying with an oxygen mask on her face. Her hand is warm in his, and it reminds him she's still alive. He's grateful, tears falling as he holds her hand against his face. Later, he sits across from the doctor, who notices his concern since there's no one else with her. The doctor says her condition is stable, and that she only has a mild concussion. She wasn't hit directly, but fell while trying to avoid the collision. The doctor explains that the initial treatment went well, but the reason she hasn't woken up yet is because of the stress and exhaustion her body went through. Her body just gave out. Sitting there, thinking, he's approached by her friend, who rushes over and asks if she's okay. The friend is relieved to hear she wasn't directly hit, and feels bad for getting there late. He admits he should have picked up her call earlier, and tells him how scared he was that she might not wake up. Her friend reminds him of how strong she is, even telling a story about carrying her to the hospital back in high school. She believes nothing could keep her down for long. Just then, a nurse comes in and tells them she's awake. They hurry to her side, and he asks if she's in pain. She looks at him, noticing how tired he looks, and asks if he's gotten any rest. She tells him she just needs to rest, and he's relieved. He encourages her to lie back down, and her friend quietly leaves, saying she'll come back later. While she eats, he insists on feeding her, even after she says no. She looks around and notices the unfamiliar room, and he tells her that the doctor suggested she rest completely. She agrees, saying the room is comfortable, and smiles at him. He takes her hand and apologizes, but she reassures him there's nothing to forgive. She admits she's happy he was the first person she saw when she woke up. She tells him it's the first time she's seen him cry, but he stays quiet, just looking at her with a lot of emotions that he doesn't say out loud. Meanwhile, her friend visits a place she'd heard about. It's nicer than she expected, and as she walks around, she bumps into someone she recognizes. She looks up and realizes it's him, the same person she met before. She tries to leave, but he grabs her by the waist and kisses her unexpectedly. Her mind starts racing, wondering if he's completely lost his mind. As the kiss continues, Shim can't help but think about how strong he is and wonder what's wrong with him. She reacts by biting his lip hard and stepping back. She demands to know if he's completely out of his mind. She scolds him, saying if he wants to get drunk, he shouldn't be so reckless. She wipes her mouth with her hand and turns away from him. He silently touches his lip where she bit him, frustrated. She tells him she's going to call the police, and warns him not to try running away. Before she can do anything, he stops her and asks her to wait. At that moment, another man steps in, apologizing for the director and saying he's really drunk. She cuts him off, saying being drunk is no excuse for acting like that. The man bows deeply, apologizing again, and it reminds her of how she feels when dealing with rude customers. Seeing how sincere he is, she decides not to make things more difficult for him. She tells him to forget the apology, but warns him to keep a closer eye on the director next time, because it's impossible to know what kind of trouble he might cause when he's like that. After that, she walks away. Later, as Seol-ha stands outside, enjoying the cool breeze, she feels a gentle tap on her shoulder. Turning around, she sees someone holding a cup of coffee for her. She accepts it, and he asks if she feels cold. She tells him no, and as she sips the warm drink, he calls her name, making her turn to face him again. He mentions hearing about her meeting with the chairman last week, and tells her not to worry about anything. He says she shouldn't care about what others think and should focus on him instead. Feeling overwhelmed, she softly calls his name before bursting into tears, catching the attention of the people around her. The onlookers start whispering, calling her a scoundrel for crying at a time like this. Ignoring them, he pulls her into a hug and apologizes, saying he takes responsibility for everything. She thanks him and explains that her tears come from all the emotions she's feeling. But the tears don't stop, and he warns her that her eyes will get puffy. He reassures her that even if she tries to push him away, he won't leave her. He asks her to promise she won't abandon him, and although she's hesitant, she agrees. He gently touches her lips with his thumb, which causes the crowd to murmur, commenting on how it looks like they've made up. Feeling a bit uncomfortable with the crowd gathering around, she mentions how many people are watching them. Just then, his phone rings, and he looks at it, frowning when he sees who's calling. He tells her to go inside while he takes the call, and she agrees, casting one last glance at him as she walks away, wondering if it's something urgent. Nearby, two elderly women start talking about him, saying how dependable he looks and how the two of them seem like they just got married. One of them even says that he's talked about marriage plans, calling him a groom-to-be. She's shocked by this and starts feeling confused about what they just said. Meanwhile, President Cha picks up the phone, answering sharply. The voice on the other end makes small talk about the nice weather, asking if he's feeling okay. He quickly brushes off the pleasantries and tells the caller to get to the point. The caller reminds him about an upcoming deadline and claims they have already come to an agreement. He denies it, saying he doesn't remember agreeing to anything. The caller, Kim Sung, sounds smug as he suggests it might have been a one-sided decision and warns that they could go directly to her if needed. Furious, President Cha snaps back, saying he doesn't trust someone as dishonest as the caller. The call ends with tension hanging in the air. Back in the hallway, she walks alone, her mind still thinking about what the women said about marriage. She wonders about what they meant, realizing that their families hadn't met yet, and there was no venue for the wedding planned. She even wonders who would give the wedding speech. Lost in these thoughts, she's suddenly startled when someone waves a hand in front of her face. He asks her what's on her mind, and she pauses before answering, saying she was thinking about how much she loves winter. He's a bit surprised but listens as she explains, mentioning how nice the weather is. He calls her name, Seol-ha, and as soon as he does, she stops looking around and focuses entirely on him. They stand there for a while, staring at each other. Then, she gently places both her hands on his cheek and kisses him. But after a moment, she quickly pulls away, saying she didn't even realize what she just did. He interrupts her, asking if she's really going to leave things like this. She starts to explain, but before she can finish, he steps closer and kisses her again. After the kiss, he looks at her seriously and says he's been holding back because she's still recovering. She tells him he doesn't need to hold back anymore. With that, President Cha can't resist anymore, and they keep kissing. They become more intimate, but just then, they hear a knock on the door. The nurse enters to check on her, and says they got an emergency call from her room. There's no answer at first, so she says her name again. She quickly replies, saying she must have pressed the button by mistake and apologizes. By this point, he has already adjusted himself, sitting in another direction, while she covers her body. As he sits there, he feels out of breath and can't find the words to say. The nurse then tells her she's glad it wasn't anything serious and wishes her a good night's rest. She thanks the nurse and expresses her gratitude. As the nurse leaves and closes the door, she sighs in relief, thinking to herself that it was a close call, and she barely made it through. Later, she's finally back home. She thanks him for driving her and tells him she'll call once she's inside. As she steps out of the car, he calls her name. She answers, and he hands her a bouquet of flowers, saying he's happy she's back. She asks when he had time to prepare them and thanks him, saying the flowers smell great. He thinks to himself that she seems to really like them. Then she mentions that he has left quite a few things at her place, and he asks what she means by things. She suggests he take them back now, and if he's up for it, he could stay for a cup of tea. He says he can grab them next time. She agrees, and as he opens the car door to get inside, she thinks that he must be really tired. Once he's inside, he puts one hand on his head, thinking about how he couldn't resist anymore. He's not sure if he can leave after just picking up his things, but for now, he decides to hold back. The next day at work, Seol-ha is busy with her system, thinking about the work that has piled up while she was away. As she works, he walks by and asks if she has the template for last year's report. She quickly responds, saying she'll send it right away, and smiles as he enters his office. Then, she gets a message from Shim, her friend, inviting her to dinner to celebrate her discharge. She agrees and suggests they have chicken and beer like they used to. While she's texting, someone knocks on her cabinet. When she looks up, she sees a man. He introduces himself and mentions the report they talked about earlier. President Cha checks the time on his wristwatch and thinks about leaving work early. He wonders if he should ask her to join him for dinner. As he walks by, he sees her talking to another man and calls her name. She doesn't respond, still talking to the guy. He watches them, feeling confused and wondering who the man is because he's never seen him before. His face shows he's not happy about what he's seeing. He keeps watching from a distance as Seol-ha and the man talk to each other. He thinks to himself about what he should do. Should he just tell him that he's her boyfriend? No, he decides he shouldn't do anything rash. He doesn't want to make her uncomfortable. But still, seeing them together makes him angry. Just then, he realizes she's standing right in front of him, staring at him. She calls his name, breaking him out of his thoughts. He quickly realizes he has been staring without even realizing it. He asks if she's done for the day, and she says she is. He tells her she did a great job today, and suggests they leave. The two of them walk out together. Meanwhile, Joo Tae-gun sits in his office, resting his chin on his hand. He can't stop thinking about the kiss he shared with Shim. He asks the lady sitting behind him if she's ever beaten someone's lip. She looks at him, confused, and asks if he's been dumped. He laughs and says she must be confusing him with someone else. She quickly adds that she hasn't been dumped. He says they can just leave things the way they are. He then tells her that Chairman Cha called and wants to meet for dinner. At Venus Company the next day, Seol-ha is carrying a heavy box. It's much harder to carry than she thought it would be. She's thankful that she didn't have to carry it on an empty stomach. Just then, President Cha shows up to help her. She's surprised and calls out his name. He reminds her that her wrist isn't fully healed yet. She thanks him, and the two of them walk inside together. As they walk, someone takes a photo of them. It's Kim Sung. He doesn't realize that Moo Young is standing right in front of him. Moo Young looks at him and says he's injuring himself. Kim Sung is startled and yells in surprise. Moo Young tells him to relax and then asks how much Joo Tae-gun has paid him. Kim Sung is confused and says he doesn't know what Moo Young is talking about. Moo Young brushes it off and says they should have a chat. Kim Sung nervously laughs. Moo Young looks at President Cha and Seol-ha walking away, and thinks to himself that he has never seen Jeong-mu smile like that before. He understands now why Jeong-mu had seemed so anxious the other day. Back inside the office, Soo-ha is stretching in her chair. She thinks it's time to go home, when she hears a voice asking if she's done for the day. The man who had approached her the day before asks if she has dinner plans. He also thanks her for helping him that morning. Suddenly, President Cha walks in and calls her name. He asks her if she has dinner plans. The other man is shocked and calls him Mr. Cha. President Cha then tells him that he and Seol-ha are having dinner together. The man quickly apologizes, says he'll ask another time, and wishes them a good night before hurrying away. She waves at him and says, "See you next week." But President Cha is still staring at her. He asks her what she and the man talked about. She answers that it was just about the reports they need for the meeting tomorrow, and that they only talked about work. She even raises both hands like she's swearing. He tells her that he knows they didn't talk about much, but it still bothers him. He admits that he's jealous and says he wishes he could tell the man to only talk to her through the company messenger. He even thinks about telling him that he's her boyfriend. Before he can finish, she quickly covers his mouth with her hand. She looks around to make sure no one is there, feeling relieved that everyone else has already left. He grabs her hand, pulls her closer, and kisses her. Then, he asks her what she thinks about it, smirking. She hesitates for a moment, wondering what he means. He grins and tells her they should head home. He then goes to grab his car key. As she thinks about the kiss, she remembers the last time they kissed, which was when she was still in the hospital. Back then, he hadn't even agreed to visit. They only held hands. She realizes he must have forgotten his car key, so she picks it up and walks into his office. She calls out his name, telling him she has his car key. He replies, yeah, and as she walks in, he immediately grabs her by the waist. The car key falls to the ground, and he wonders why it was left there. He kisses her again, and as he does, he locks the door of his office. Seol-ha steps out of the shower, towel in hand, drying her hair as she walks toward the living room. She stops in her tracks when she sees the room. It's sparkling clean. She stands there for a moment, her hands covering her mouth, in complete surprise. She can't help but speak up, telling him that he didn't need to go this far. He closes the book he was reading and looks up at her. He tells her that he barely did anything. He stands up and walks over to her, and she thinks to herself, I feel bad now. He looks at her seriously, and says that her hair looks like it needs him to dry it. He grabs the hairdryer and starts drying her hair. When he finishes, he tells her how soft her hair is. She answers with a simple yeah, but inside, she's confused. Why is her heart racing? The moment lingers for a bit until the doorbell rings. They both turn toward the door. He says the food must have arrived, then walks to get it. When he comes back, he places it neatly on the table. She excitedly says how much she's been looking forward to eating. Just as they are about to start, the doorbell rings again. He steps out once more to check who it is, leaving her alone with the food. She looks at everything on the table, wondering how they are going to finish it all. About 30 minutes later, they are done eating, and Seol-ha is lying on his chest. Her hands are on her stomach, and she sighs, saying her stomach feels like it's about to explode. She asks if there's any more food, and he tells her there's still dessert. Her eyes widen in surprise, and she barely manages to sit up. He gives her a quick kiss on the cheek. She touches her cheek, still surprised, and asks if they hadn't done enough the previous night. He tells her it wasn't enough for him. He says he had to endure a long night alone, and that he deserves a reward for his patience. He even resisted the urge to take care of things himself. She laughs and asks if he does that when he's alone. He casually says, of course, why wouldn't I? She can't imagine it, but he encourages her to do so, saying, imagine it. At that moment, she lies down on the floor, and he hovers above her. She asks him what's going on this time, but he doesn't know. She asks again, and he tells her not to imagine it, but to see for herself. She immediately tells him to stop and warns that if he doesn't, she will scream. He teases her, asking if she really doesn't want to see it since she's been staring at it. She tells him to pull his pants up already. Later, Ju Taegun meets with someone. He greets the man, saying it's been a while and expresses surprise that he came here himself. The man replies that he came to check on a few things. Ju Taegun asks how Woo Hyun is doing, and the man responds that he's just curious about how his little sister is. He then adds that there's no need for Ju Taegun to glare at him. Ju Taegun waves it off, saying the man can tell Woo Hyun he said hi. The man wonders what Woo Hyun has been up to lately, and he hopes she's doing all right after shutting herself in. He suggests maybe the man could bring her out sometime. As night falls, Seol-ha and President Cha are outside, enjoying a drink. She looks at the shop and says she's always wanted to try it. He agrees and says he's glad they are there. Then, he asks about the man who has been visiting her at work. She's confused at first, asking which man, and he reminds her of the one she called by his first name. She explains that they met at a study group a while ago, and that he recently joined Venus. As she sips her drink, he sighs. Then, he asks her, "Can't you call me by my first name too?" President Cha looks at her and asks if she can call him by his first name too. She turns to him and asks if he really wants that. He nods, and she replies that it's not hard, calling him Jeong-mu. As she speaks, she notices him staring at her. She calls his name again, Jeong-mu. When he looks at her, she quickly turns her face, hiding behind her drink and saying it's a little embarrassing to call him that all of a sudden. He smiles and tells her she can call him whatever she wants, as he's not trying to pressure her. He explains that he's just jealous. She agrees, but when he doesn't catch her response, she grabs his hand and starts walking away, dragging him along. She finally says, "Let's go now, Jeong-mu." He smiles, watching her from behind. He asks her to say it again, but she simply tells him, "Next time." The next day at the office, Seol-ha is making coffee when she feels a bit sore from sitting down all day. While she's preparing the coffee, she hears footsteps approaching. 2 employees walk up to her, and one of them greets her, saying that Mr. Cha is looking for her. She gets confused and asks who they mean. The employee jokingly asks if she and Mr. Cha used to date. She's surprised and asks where that came from. The employee mentions an article about it, and Seol-ha quickly brushes it off, saying it's a misunderstanding. The employee teases that she and Mr. Cha would make the cutest couple, and that they support it. Seol-ha thinks about it, wondering if they really believe what they are saying. Then, the other employee, Miss Han, shows her a ring and says her boyfriend proposed and they are planning to marry early next year. She congratulates Miss Han, who then shares that last Friday, she lost her engagement ring, but is thankful that Miss Yun helped her find it. Miss Yun agrees, adding that losing something so special would have been terrible. As Miss Han touches her ring, Seol-ha watches her and thinks about how happy Miss Han looks. She wonders what it must feel like to get married and how beautiful that must be. In another part of the office, Ju Tae-gun looks at a paper and asks Kim Sung why he's just getting it now. Kim Sung replies that he only just came up with the information. Ju Tae-gun isn't surprised by the news about Jeong-mu, saying that he isn't someone who's easily swayed. Kim Sung, however, is thinking about the man who's caused him so much trouble. He remembers the background check Jeong-mu did on him, and how everything started because of a drug problem. Ju Tae-gun throws the paper onto the table, thinking about the new information, and how it will keep him entertained. He wonders what will happen when Seol-ha finds out. At Venus Company, Seol-ha is standing in front of Jeong-mu, handing him a tablet with the files he asked for. She tells him the meeting is scheduled for tomorrow. He thanks her for taking care of everything and then asks how she's feeling. She says she's fine. He apologizes for keeping her up late the night before since she had work today, but she tells him not to worry about it, saying it's fine. In her mind, though, she wonders how many times they were together the night before. She turns to Jeong-mu and says she really enjoyed their time together. He asks if she did, and she quickly turns to leave, saying she has to go. As she passes by his couch, she notices her hairband there. She picks it up quickly, feeling relieved to find it, and hurries out the door, closing it behind her. President Cha arranges his suit and looks around his office, remembering the events of the previous night. He thinks about how she always gets him worked up. He walks out of his office slowly, trying to clear his head. He tells himself he needs to cool down for a bit. Later, at night, Seol-ha is finally free. She lies down on her bed, feeling the weight of a long, busy day. Lying there, she mutters to herself that this was exactly what she had been waiting for. Today had been tiring, but she can't help but wonder what Mr. Cha is doing right now. Curious, she picks up her phone and looks at the screen. She scrolls through her call log, stopping for a moment. She can't help but think about what Ms. Han and the others had said about her and President Cha being the cutest couple. They even said they supported the idea. As she thinks about it, she realizes they might not be able to keep it a secret for much longer. She decides to call President Cha. When he picks up, she sits up in bed and says hello. He asks if she has time to talk and wonders what she's up to. She tells him she's just lying in bed after taking a shower. He says he was about to call her because he wanted to hear her voice. They both smile, realizing they were thinking the same thing at the same time. He then asks if she's decided where she wants to go for the weekend. She remembers that she promised to think about it and tells him she's already planned the whole day. He asks where she wants to go, sounding curious. She tells him there's a place near her house that she has in mind. He's surprised and repeats, "Really?" He stops for a moment and wonders if he should just skip work the next day to spend time with her. He can't stop thinking about the place she mentioned, the one near her house. He keeps thinking nice and steamy to himself. Later, they are together, and she has a towel on her head. She smiles, saying it feels great. He nods and says they were able to stay in the sauna for a long time. She agrees, saying it felt more refreshing that way. President Cha says it was hot and steamy in the sauna. He moves closer to her with a smile, saying it really put him in the mood. She looks at him, and he teases her, saying he wants to challenge her to see who can last longer. He smirks, and she thinks to herself that he's become such a fox these days. Suddenly, a ball rolls toward them, and two kids come running after it. The boy says he's sure the ball went that way. She helps them pick it up, and when the boy comes closer, she hands him the ball. He thanks her, and she smiles, thinking they're so cute. She stays with the kids for a little while, playing with them. Meanwhile, President Cha watches her from a distance, keeping his eyes on her. When she returns, she tells him that the kids gave her a little gift, and it's cute. He agrees and then asks if she likes children. She tells him she loves them and that her dream had been to be a teacher. He asks how many children she wants if she gets married. She pops some sweets into her mouth, then pauses, saying, "If I get married." She stops herself, then suggests they go into another room. With a grin, President Cha asks if she means somewhere hot and steamy again. She shakes her head and says it's the ice room this time, and they can do the challenge there. Outside, it's nighttime, and they walk side by side, holding hands. She asks if he did anything last Christmas. He replies that he just walked around and wanted to have dinner with her, but Miss Lee beat him to it. She laughs at his words. She tells him that this year, she plans to spend time with Shim first, so she can spend Christmas with her boyfriend. He smiles and asks if she has any ideas for what they'll do. She says she's still thinking about it because there are so many things she wants to do. Just then, President Cha's phone buzzes. He checks the message from Chairman Cha about a meeting with the Taikang group that night. He puts the phone back in his coat pocket and doesn't say much. She asks if it's something important, and he brushes it off, saying it's just spam. They reach a building, and she suggests they go inside. It's cold inside, and he agrees, so they go in. He asks if she'll be scared, but she turns and smiles at him. He thinks to himself how much he wishes he could always see her smile, carefree. Now, they are in the cinema, watching a movie. She's eating popcorn, and he keeps looking at her, thinking how he wants her to be the first thing he sees when he wakes up. He wants to spend all day with her. She suddenly notices him staring and asks if he's enjoying the movie. He grins, still lost in his thoughts. Without saying anything, he thinks about how love can't really be measured, but his love for her is so much bigger. He leans his head on her shoulder, thinking that his love for her goes deeper than anything. He knows she's too good for him, but he won't ever let go of her. And just then, they kiss in the rain. If you're eager for the next chapter, drop a comment expressing your interest in a part 3. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay updated. Until next time, ciao.